everyone, my name is Kristin Hayes and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I'm going to show you how to make this pretty spring card today. To start with, we're going to use a piece of Bermuda Bay, and that's cut at 8.5 by 5.5 and then scored at 4.25. So I'm just going to fold that in half. We'll give it a nice crease with the bone folder. And then we're going to have a piece of Pool Party, and that is cut at 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. And I'm just going to adhere that right on to the base because there's nothing else we're doing to this piece of paper. So we'll just put it right on like this. Whoop. Here we go. Alrighty. Then the other pieces we need are a piece of the black foil, and this is I don't believe this is listed in the annual catalog. It was in one of the seasonal catalogs, but you can still order it. And this is cut at 5 by 3 3/4, and then we're going to use a piece of the Whisper White, and that's cut at 4 3/4 by 3.5. And then finally, the last piece that we'll need is a piece of the Coastal Cabana, and that's cut at 4 1/8 by 1 inch. So to start with, we're going to start with this piece of Whisper White, and we're going to give it a little bit of a background. So the three colors I'm using are Bermuda Bay, Pool Party, and Coastal Cabana. So I'm just going to start with the Pool Party. And I'm going to take, this is the Bloom by Bloom stamp set we're going to be using. And I'm going to take this round circle here, and we'll use a couple of the other pieces for the flower later on. So I'm going to start with the circle, and I'm just going to ink it up. And I'm just going to start making a design right on the paper. And I'm just going to fill this whole sheet right up. And it does take a minute to do it. And I'm leaving space to do the other colors, and I can always come back and add more of any color I want because I do want to have no white space. So then I'm just going to come in with the Coastal Cabana and do the same thing. You could even do some stamping off if you wanted to have more than 3 shades. That would work as well. And it might actually go a little bit faster. So see there, I didn't quite stamp all the way. It's no problem. I'm just going to stamp right over it, and no one's going to know the difference. Because you're doing so many overlaying stamps, it really doesn't matter that you don't stamp fully on one. So I'm going to switch off to the darkest color now, and that's the Bermuda Bay. And I am wiping my stamp off each time I switch colors over on my chamois. And again, I didn't stamp quite enough there, so I'm going to go back over that one. And we're just filling in all the spaces. Excuse my sniffling, I do have a little bit of a cold, and you can probably hear sniffling from the other room. We've passed it around in our household, unfortunately. So I'm going to switch back now to the Pool Party and just get some of these spaces that I missed. And maybe we'll do a little bit more of the Coastal Cabana as well. So we'll just come in here and fill those in. And as you're going over them and overlapping, you can see different hues of the same color as well. So it looks like you're using more colors than only 3. All right, I think we just have the edge over here. I'll use just a little more of the Bermuda Bay just to make sure I've got all my spots filled in. There's a little more over here, so we'll do a few more stamps in this direction to even it out. I think we're good. All right, so we've got that nice and filled up, so we're all set with these colors. So I'm just gonna put them away so we don't inadvertently drop our project into an open ink pad, which has happened to me many times. So I want to emboss on this piece of paper. So I want the ink to be totally dry. So normally I don't, I wouldn't heat set my ink because it does dry very fast. But because I'm going to be using embossing powder, I don't want it sticking where it doesn't need to be. So I am going to just turn on my heat tool and heat this up just to set the ink. And I'm really just quickly going to go right over it. There we go. All right, so now I'm noticing a white spot right there. I'm going to fill that in really quickly here. All right. There we go. Now I feel a little bit better. Probably nobody would have ever noticed that except for me. All right, so we'll just use the heat tool a little bit more. No spots. Alrighty, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do the heat embossing with this flower bud and the stem from the Bloom by Bloom stamp set. So before I heat emboss, I always use the embossing buddy. I know some people emboss without it, but it just helps to take the static rather, off of your paper so that your ink is going to go where you want it to go. So we're going to come in using the Versamark. And we're just going to ink this up with our Versamark and just put it right in the middle of our paper. Give it a good press. And it's very hard to pick up on camera. I don't know if you can even see that watermark there, but there is ink on there from the Versamark. And then we're going to come in with the flower and just... I can see it better than you can on the camera, but we're just going to line that up, press that down, and then our flower is on there as well. So I'm going to come in with a piece of scrap grid paper just to spread my embossing powder so I don't get it everywhere. And we're just going to liberally sprinkle it on our paper. I always use a lot. But that's okay. Whoops, we missed a spot. And then I just feed it back into here. So I missed some up here, so we're going to go back in, grab that, tap it off good. And there are a few spots that we have the embossing powder still on. So I'm just going to brush it off with my fingers. You can always use a paintbrush to do that. But I don't have a lot, and it's not in a little spot where it'd be hard to get to. So I'll just put the rest of my embossing powder back in here. Not that there was too much there. And then we're going to come in with our heat tool again, and we're going to heat this up. So excuse the noise while we do that. And you just want to heat it until you can see it start to turn like this and get shiny. There we go. So we have a nice black heat embossed flower on our paper. So while I have the embossing tools out, I'm just going to take this Happy Birthday from the Perennial Birthday stamp set in the annual catalog, and I'm going to emboss that on the Coastal Cabana. This is cut, I believe I said it, but at 4 1/8 by 1 inch. So we'll ink up the Happy Birthday. Get that centered on our paper. Oh, I didn't use the embossing buddy. Let me just do that really quickly. There we go. I'm just going to ink it again in case it dried a little bit. Okay, here we go. Center that up. and press on. There we go. Maybe a little crooked. No, I think it's good. It's good. No one's going to notice a little tiny bit of crooked anyways. I think we're all of our own worst critics in that regard. So we're just going to sprinkle the embossing powder back on here. Tap it off. I don't like it around that H, so we're just going to use our finger. Okay. Of course, I just blew embossing powder all over the place with that, but that's all right. We'll get that cleaned up afterwards. I'll get all over this. Tap that off. Okay. All right, so we'll put that aside, and we're going to heat emboss this happy birthday. Boy, I really got the embossing powder everywhere, blowing it. Oh boy. So we're all set with that. Tap off all this embossing powder I have everywhere now. Oh my goodness. Oh, if it's not getting my cards and open ink pads, it's embossing powder everywhere. Let me just get that over to the side at least. Okay. There we go. Now we can put our card together. We're going to put the embossed piece right onto our black foil. Like this. And I love the black foil with the black embossing. It's all nice and shiny together. And then we're going to take our piece of, I have a piece of ribbon here. This is the, let's see, it's the satin ribbon, 1/2 inch, and it's just in black. And I'm going to just adhere it over that. So we're going to put a little piece of snail on the back and just pull the ribbon right down just for some decoration. And we'll adhere it to the back on here. I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. Or as straight as I can get it today. All right. So then we're going to put some snail on the back of this. And I always put a little bit extra on the ribbon because, oh, my snail is out. Let's use another one. Because you don't want that coming off. Oops. There we go. Sometimes you have to use the snail a little bit slower on the foiled papers. It just seems to work better if you do it that way. So we're going to adhere it onto our base like this. And then we're going to take our happy birthday piece and we're going to use some dimensionals on the back. Let's see where I've got my dimensionals. Here we go. I'm just going to use 3. You don't need a ton of dimensionals when you use them. They stick really well. So we're going to put those here. And then we're going to put this right on our card. And those dimensional backs go everywhere, my goodness. Okay, so here's our card. And here's the original. I hope you like this video. And if you're not already working with the Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, I would love a chance to work with you. All of my links will be listed down below. Thanks so much.